There was one client that came to me asking like, hey, or this is a wedding client. They're like, I want you to make it like a documentary, like Animal Planet. And I was like,
What?
because the groom the groom loves Animal Planet. Shout out to you, Austin, if you're watching this.
Happy holidays, everybody. Today there will be no film video, but rather a conversation between me and my friend Richie. He's going to introduce himself in a bit, but this is more like that podcast style video that I did a couple weeks back. And it's still unofficial if this is going to be an ongoing thing, but it's about becoming your own translator of putting your thoughts and your mind and creativity and the difficulty of like putting it out on video or like on a canvas or on an essay. So we go on a bunch of tangents. We are still like getting better, or I'm still getting better at moderating a conversation and having it be cohesive and concise. So, you know, enjoy this very rough conversation between me and Richie. Have a good one.
What's up, everyone? My name is Richie. I am a creative, I guess, as Chris may have described. I full-time work as an industrial engineer, mainly designing packaging. So anything that your Cheez-Its come in, or your Band-Aids or whatever, if it's in a box, I probably made it. And so I draw lines on the screen for a living. That's what I like to tell people. In terms of as a creative, I have dabbled in many different fields, when I was like in 8th grade, my mom put me in a drawing class, and that may have been like the beginning of it. From there, it led to photography. And from there, it led to like graphic design, designing shirts, t-shirts. I had a screen printed clothing line in college. And then after that was like a full-fledged jump into videography. I mainly did travel films, but I also do paid gigs for weddings. And so, yeah, I've like had a wide range of things I've done creatively. And in terms of how I met Chris through Nate. You've probably seen him behind the scenes in some of his videos. And Nate was my college roommate for a year, and Nate and Chris are tight. And so naturally I was going to hear about this Who's Chris Chu fellow, the photographer that was colorblind.
Oh my god!
I don't know if he's brought it up to you, the fans of him, that he had an Instagram account called Colorblind.
Oh no!
I hope this makes the cut. But I met him through him. Like, we knew of each other, and one time we were at some college conference and we saw each other, we knew of each other, and from there didn't need an introduction and just started hanging out. So long story short, that's me in a bundle. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks for introducing yourself, Richie. Yeah, like what he said, we met through a very mutual friend, his college roommate, my longtime friend from childhood. And yeah, kind of what you just heard, like he has his hand in like a lot of like creative ventures. He has his own clothing line. He like does wedding he does wedding videography, travel videos. He dabbles in photography. He's a pretty good like mobile photographer. I like remember when you were still back at Cal Poly Slow, like you would take pictures like everywhere you go, and like you hit it with did you like always hit it with the Pantone like on the side or something like that?
What do you mean hit a Pantone on the side?
Like every time like the color block thing, like the main colors that are present in your photos.
That was like for like a month of photos. That was too much work, but I know what you mean. I liked taking my photos and like adding like overlays and like other artistic things on top of the photo just to give the photo like more quality to it. If I can find a raw file, I'll send it to Chris to show.
Right.
But I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that was fun for the stint that it was.
Yeah, I remember like seeing those. I'm like, whoa, I really like how he changed up like the Instagram gallery thing, because I think that was like around when it might have been new. I totally forgot when the gallery feature came out, but you did it in like a really creative way where like you broke through like different like slides so that it's like more of a seamless thing. And then like as I like got to know Richie more, like I heard about like his Witness Project clothing line. I heard about like more of his video stuff, and like it was interesting that like you deep dived into video first, but I guess we could get into that later. But what we're gonna talk about like in this like kind of podcasty type unofficial episode is translating our creative ideas from like the conception of the idea to getting it out and executing it and all the difficulties and maybe like the fun in between. So what is like your creative process, as cliche as it is? What is your creative process from like conception of idea? And let's talk about more of like your travel videos. Like how do you go into a travel vacation and kind of like flesh out a video?
Yeah, I like how you specifically pointed out travel videos because my wedding videos differ from my traveling videos, which differ from like any other video I've done where it's like where I take a concept and try to share that concept into an idea. So for travel videos, I'm just trying to document the trip and whatever looks nice on that trip is just my goal, just to encapsulate. And what I've done is divide my travel videos into just the city. And so when I go to said place, I'm trying to capture the essence of the city that I'm in. And so I have ones for like a trip to San Francisco, a trip to LA, a trip to Seattle, et cetera, et cetera. And so that is a run and gun shoot. I have really no way of planning where I'm going to go or how it's going to look. I just I think the most planning I can do is like knowing what film techniques I'm going to use. Like, am I going to do in-body transitions or am I going to pan a certain way that's consistent throughout the video? Like those technical things are maybe the things that I can translate. But in terms of like having like, I guess, an essence of what the video is going to look like I go into it blind. And
oh my God,
that's worked out for me this whole time. So that is the creative process where I record like easily 4 hours or not 4 hours. That's probably a wedding video. Like an hour or two of footage, and I sit at the editing bay and crank it out in a few hours of editing.
Okay, so when you go into those
process for
when you go into those kind of videos, like, do you like planning ahead of time, or do you like to like just kind of like soak it in and just like see whatever works, or like you overshoot and then you see whatever works in the editing bay? Like, do you like storyboarding? Because I know a lot of people do. Like, they love to literally write out frames of like the certain kind of shots to kind of like take the load off of the actual shoot day. But like, what do you prefer?
No, I'm perpetually like worried that I don't film enough. So that implies that I am not preparing prior to the shoot, I guess. And so I draw a lot of inspiration from like Andy 2. Maybe there's overlap with your audience in Andy 2, both Bay Area Asians.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, maybe. That'd be pretty cool.
But yeah, Andy 2, he does cliche video effects, but in a very well done way. In how I would say it. Like
Andy 2 is gonna kill you now.
No, I'm just saying. It's like, you know what I'm talking about, with like the hyperlapses and like the spinning gimbal action.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Like,
yeah.
If done with the wrong music or like just done corny, like it turns out really corny in my opinion. But I don't know. I might be like Scorsese right now, dogging on Marvel films by saying that. But like a lot of inspiration comes from him, and I'm pretty sure he runs and guns. I don't think that, but I do know he also films across like a extended period of time. Like I think he put out a New York video, but he said that it was like clips throughout, like a month of filming or something. And so, yeah, like I don't plan my shots to that degree at all.
Yeah, so I know like some viewers that are watching right now, like they would always go into a photo shoot or video shoot with like either a storyboard or a shot list written down. For me personally, like I need to have, or not need, I highly prefer like having a vision going into anything. I don't necessarily need to write it out or literally draw it out, because I like having the vision like big in my head. Kind of like, So there's like a spectrum of like thought, and I guess like we're gonna go really like shallow into it because none of us are professional psychologists. But one side of the spectrum of like thoughts being like too big is like, you know, anxiety. Like when you think that someone's like thinking bad of you, or like that everything's gonna be negative and like the outcome is always gonna be like not in your favor. Like that's like a thought that's like way too big, and you should be like journaling that slash externally processing that with somebody, because usually those thoughts are like not true. So those thoughts need to like be minimized. On the other side of the spectrum, like I like to have my lofty like creative decisions remain that gigantic. I want it to be like a whole planet slash landscape that I want to traverse as I'm shooting, but I know which parts to traverse, because if I go into a shoot, kind of like a travel video, I'm terrible at those because usually the location is too big for me and I don't know like what kind of shots I need. And when I do want to stop and get a shot, I get okay, and I get anxious about holding up the group too long. I'm like, oh shoot, like I don't want to like tell the group stop. Like I want to get a shot of like you walking here and all this other stuff. Like
man, you gotta embrace that.
Yeah, I'm really bad at like asking people for that kind of stuff, even though like they probably wouldn't mind at all. So going into like videos, YouTube videos, I have a specific sound, or I have a track, a voiceover or line, or like a specific shot that I want like the video to be framed around, a hero shot, like as they would say. And this would be like the crown jewel, and then like the video like flesh like laterally and like go upwards from there. So that's like how I would prefer. So like the whole like run and gun thing, like for wedding videos especially, I just like did my first wedding video this past weekend, and it was stressful because I didn't have that much of a vision going into it. Like I'm a wedding photographer by trade, so I thought like essentially you're just pushing and moving the image instead of like taking a still life. But yeah, what is like
layers to it, man?
What is the wedding video process for you?
It's still run and gun, but it's I know what you mean. I know what you mean though, where you can't think like a photographer when you're doing video, because you put a photos are still images. You put a still image in a video, like in my mind, when I see that in editing bay, I'm like, frick, why didn't I at least like pan a little bit, or show some movement? And so there's layer. That's why I'm laughing, because I'm like, I've definitely been there in terms of like approaching a wedding video without embracing like the advantages of a wedding video. And so in terms of a wedding, for my creative process, one of the biggest things I think of is like, I said it's still run and gun, but like within the run and gun, I guess I have parameters of how I'm going to do the run and gun. So I know like, maybe I have a style of leading lines that I like, or a type of like minimal composition. If you haven't seen Chris's minimal composition video, this is a shameless plug for his own.
I didn't ask him to do that.
I'm kidding. Link up here in the corner.
Wow, he knows the routine.
I'm messing. But like if I have I like a certain style of minimal composition, so I'm gonna like scout out the walls at the venue and see what's gonna look good for that composition. Or I know I'm going to pan a certain way, and so I'm going to have these parameters in mind while still running and gunning, because the running and gunning comes more so from like the environment that I'm in. I think you were sharing a little bit about the venue, how it was like just a backyard and there's not much to work with. Like were you guys able to like go off site to like another place for photos or videos or anything? Or were you just purely...
the bride and groom got ready at their own apartment, then we met at the big house backyard, and that was it. Like that was the only like locations.
Okay, yeah. So it's always going to vary client to client, like how, but like you said, you had like an idea and you're going to explore the idea within the parameters of that venue. And so yeah, for me it's a lot of running and gunning. Like with an idea of my style, I guess, but that's the most I can bring into a shoot to then, I guess, translate the thoughts in my head into a video. Yeah.
So I've noticed that in both your wedding videos and in your travel videos, there's a lot of heart behind it. I'm not saying like other filmmakers don't have heart behind their work, but like there's a specific kind of like feeling that you're really good at like being consistent in conveying. So for the whole like run and gun thing, like I'm like really bad at it, but like because you run and gun, but the feeling is consistent. Like how have you been able to do that? So for example, like Richie made a video of when I think the pandemic or the quarantine was in either in the first third phase or the second third of the phase. We're not even at the end yet, so there's not really a phase. But there was a video that you made of like overwhelming like news articles and like news clips like on your laptop, and then you shut it, and then you like escape to what was it, Olympic National Park? Yeah. So like you did a really good job capturing that feeling of like escaping and relaxation through like a variation of like frame rates and stuff like that, but also like the voiceover and all this other stuff. So like, do you have this feeling already like in your head or like in your heart, and like you're just slowly like emitting that like through shooting the clip, or do you slowly emit that through the editing?
Yo, actually, now that you say that, I think I pick a song before I go into a wedding venue or go into a shoot.
Oh, really?
Like half the time, like for a travel video more so. Like I have a song that I think fits the mood that I envision in my head, and then maybe I do a bit of both now that I'm saying this. Yeah, there's definitely like there's some shoots, some travel videos where I like, oh, I like that song, I'm gonna use it.
Yeah.
Or like for a wedding video, like I come across this like track that I really like, and I can see like the clips in my head, and to be fair, I don't necessarily shoot to bring those clips to fruition, but I'm hoping that what I shoot will work with the vision that I have sometimes. This sounds terrible, but I promise. I promise. Yeah. I definitely, now that you say that, yeah, I'm reminded there's been some shoots, where I know kind of audibly how it's going to sound, and from there go into a editing mode, I guess, to bring out one like the mood, or the other characteristics of a video to follow. But like for you, when you did your wedding shoot, did you, because we've been talking about this, did you struggle with the wedding shoot because it was a run and gun and you like to have the idea of a video prior to the shoot, but like how I've described it, it's like a really run and gun situation for a wedding? Like how was the shoot for you when you
it was
last time?
It was mad stressful. I did have I would say like obviously like the emotion that you want to like evoke in a wedding video is love, right? Like that's like really easy, but like what kind of love, and what kind of assisting emotion do you want to I say like serve alongside like that love emotion? So I think going into it, like I was stressing out because first of all, it was my first like wedding video, but second of all, like I was struggling with the assisting emotion. So if love is going to be like the main vehicle, the sidecar that like I think I ultimately decided on was if you guys have watched like Captain Marvel, Richie's a huge Marvel fan, but like at the end of Captain Marvel, oh, this might be a spoiler. Actually, no, it's not really a spoiler at all. But
it's been like a year.
What's that?
Captain Marvel's been out for like a year.
Okay, yeah, true. Yeah. At this point, like the statute of limitations are over. But there's this one scene at the very end when Captain Marvel and Nick Fury were like washing dishes together, and I think they were just like talking as like, you know what I'm talking about?
No, I'm messing.
Okay. Let me repeat that part. You freaking troll. Wait, hold on. I just got a text from mi madre. I'm gonna cut this part. Still recording.
I actually did have a brain fart because I didn't know what you were talking about for a second, but I was trying to play it off.
Oh, come on, cuz. All right, I'm gonna repeat that. So at the end of Captain Marvel, there was this scene where Captain Marvel and Nick Fury were like washing dishes together, and this is like not a superhero moment at all, and I think it showed like two people that were like really different, coming from different backgrounds, and you know, like both of them are like leaders in their own like world, so to speak. They're like coming together like wash dishes, and there was this one part where they just laughed and chuckled, and I think they did a knuckle tap. Like that's kind of like the not vibe, because we don't like to say vibe, but that was like the feeling that I wanted to have as the additional sidecar, because I guess like when you get married, and I'm not in a relationship either, but that was kind of like what I see. Like these are like two people who have like lived and led their own lives for like most of their, actually all of their lives up until that point, and they're coming together and kind of like forming into one, you know. So that's kind of like the casual familial tone that I wanted to address, I guess, like through the clips. But when I was like on site, like I didn't have a shot list, I didn't have anything, and then I have like a specific
You didn't have a
clip in
shot
mind.
list?
I didn't have a shot list, so I was like going off of like
What?
what would I do as a photographer, and that's like what stressed me out. I was sweating like crazy.
Oh my god.
Yeah, see like this. See, like I'm super like new and inefficient to like the wedding video game, and like for my YouTube videos, like I have like a clip in mind for like second 23 to second 26, and minute 103 to like 105. So like for the wedding video, I was just like just like shoot everything, and then like in the editing bay,
my.
I know people. This is gonna make a lot of people cringe too, but I know for a fact people love to do like bins in either Final Cut Pro or Premiere. And like they're like, oh, first
Bro,
like
you're gonna
this,
tell me
groom
about
getting
that.
ready this, and like all this other stuff. I unload everything. And so like it's a gigantic like marble block that has like no direction and like no compartmentalization. And this is kind of ironic because I just said I don't like running and gunning, but in the editing, I love running and gunning. I love it when it's like all laid out like Lego pieces, and like I could just like kind of like find my voice like through the various clips like through that. So I guess like we're kind of
Interesting.
realizing that we're not as like in our lane as we thought we were. But yeah, like for
Interesting.
specifically the 24 video that I posted like a while ago like on my YouTube channel, like the essence that I wanted to capture there was kind of like the familial tone too, because like I wanted like my actual like voice tone to be lower so that it seemed like I was for sure like talking to myself, but also like having a conversation with like you or somebody who was like a viewer like across the screen, because the whole essence that I wanted to get, or the message that I wanted to get, was to appreciate the moment that I'm in that I used to wish for. So like when I was like 14, 15, 16 years old growing up, like I wanted friends who I could travel with. I wanted like to be confident, and I wanted to like love what I do. And like when I like became like 18 years old, 19 years old, I like start to have like some of these like wishes slash prayers like get answered. But when I was like in the middle of that getting answered, I'm like, oh, I want more. Like I want to like move to the next one already. So like in that 24 video, I wanted it to be like, dude, you got to slow down and appreciate, because you're in the middle of like what you wished for so long. And then that's like the message. But the whole feeling, if I were to like poorly describe like what it looks like in my head, like the colors that like come to my head are like yellow and blue, which like happen to be my favorite colors as well. Like blue is my favorite color, yellow is my accent color, and I think blue and yellow show up in that video. So it was kind of like correctly executed from my mind. But translating these like creative ideas, or translating these like nebulous like thoughts in our heads, can be like really hard sometimes, like whether that's like the feeling or the sound that we want. I don't know how music producers do it at all, because that's even harder because you have nothing to look at.
Yeah.
But yeah, what is it like? I mean, I kind of like already asked this for you, but like, have you struggled with like translating your creativity to either paper, or it's like to a video, or even in words to like a client slash like a friend?
I hear the question. I think there's, again, depending on the video, the idea is gonna look different in the first place. And so I would say that that's also why I don't have that many non run and gun videos, because I think what you like, I don't know what you would group it into, but your 24 video and your sunset video, like they all have a concept, and you're trying to bring that
Yeah.
concept to life. And I don't have as many of those videos. I can count on my hand how many I've made like that. And so in response to your question, I don't even make that many videos where I need to translate necessarily a blobulous concept onto the screen. I've mainly dabbled in like situations where it's run and gun, and so it's hard for me to answer that question. But for the videos that I've had, yeah, it's hard. The most recent one I can think of is when the quarantine went down, and everyone was just starting to shelter in place. I wanted to spin it, and instead of place, change it with the word peace, to promote this
Oh
idea.
yeah.
that it's not as like hectic and drastic and chaotic as people make it out to be. But then to think of how to bring like I had this idea where I wanted to like showcase what I think was thinking in my head into a video. I wanted to capture like the anxiety, and I also wanted to capture like the hope that I had. That's hard. Like
Yeah.
trying to showcase emotion without just being blatantly corny, like up into my face, like crying or like some like how to artistically do it. Like that's
Yeah.
hard. And then also trying to showcase hope. What I ended up doing was like just writing, like like capturing what I was writing in a journal. But what I was
Oh, yeah.
writing in the journal was matching like the hopeful dialogue that I had, but that idea took a while to like even arrive at. And so to answer your question, yes, it is hard. But I have a follow-up question for you going off of that because and this is because you're in the YouTube space, and the YouTube space
Yeah.
is based on an algorithm. What I've noticed,
Yeah.
these creative thoughts that we put in more of our heart and our time and effort into creating don't get picked up by the algorithm that often as
Oh,
much
yep.
as like
Very true.
as much as like 3 reasons why to shoot film or how to take self portraits 1, 2, and 3 like
Yeah.
you know what I'm talking about? It's like how do you balance like the reality of your platform with the I don't know what the opposite is, but like that drive to just still produce the things you want to make creatively. Like why 24 or The Sunset is one of your favorite videos, yet like you've said doesn't get picked up by as many people
Yeah.
as the other one. Like how do you balance the two being on the platform you're on?
That's a very good question. I think a lot of like YouTube creators like struggle with that too, like the balance of doing things that they want to do versus the things that are like very searchable slash very likable. Um, yeah, you're totally right. The 24 video and the sunset video, like those are like one of the worst performing videos I have on my channel. But
And I
the
love
balance
those
that I
videos, man. Sorry.
yeah, like I really loved making it, and like it makes me like literally like run around my room like whenever I like edit those kind of things. But I think the balance of that is like there's that one side of the person who only makes stuff that they like. I had a conversation with a friend who like went to Berkeley for like art, like she majored in art, and she realized that like doing fine art and all stuff is like very like satisfying emotionally and mentally and just like for the soul, for her solely, no pun intended. And she realized that like even though she was the only one that could understand her art, she realized that like it kind of was like living in an ivory tower of like, oh, people just don't get me kind of thing. Like I will just be frustrated by the world because they're not ready for this kind of stuff. And then there's that side of the spectrum. The other side of the spectrum is only making things that other people like. And you can make like every single Peter McKinnon video out there, and like you'll probably like strike gold like somewhere, right? Or you could do a lot of reacts videos or very like sensational videos of you doing like something ridiculous, and that could like totally get picked up by the algorithm. You can make millions of dollars, millions of views, millions of subscribers, but like does that align with you personally? And to find a balance of that for me personally is I want to connect with people the most. Like that is like my number one thing. Like I want to connect with people and I want to teach something. So teaching stuff definitely is like more SEO friendly because I could do the how to, and then that's already like two really highly searchable like words.
Got
And then
you.
like I like tag on something, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then there's the sunset 40s, and then there's the 24 video, there's my college dropout video. And I think I find my balance by saying like I can't only make stuff that I like, because then nobody is going to be learning anything from this. My other teaching videos won't like reach out to anybody if like the majority of this stuff is, if the majority of my content is like only things that I would watch. So I make sure that like, yes, I want to like teach people. Yes, I want to like lead people in the right direction in terms of like their business and also like creative mentality and in the confidence of their own selves. But there has to be a point where like, there has to be a point on like both spectrums where you have to like realize like what that the extremes like don't work, period. Because if you're only making stuff that people like, you're going to burn out because you're only feeding an algorithm. You're only feeding what people want. If you're only making stuff that only you watch, nobody's going to watch it, kind of thing. So, I kind of find the blend in the teaching videos of like how I would want to learn it. So, both you and I and every student out there has had a bad teacher once, at least once, and you like say like, oh my gosh, like I don't like how this professor like speaks way too fast, or I don't like how this professor like doesn't answer anybody's questions. Like I draw from those experiences of like poor teaching. I'm like, oh, how can I like make this very much like me, but also make it like entertaining and like easily digestible for other people? Like that's like where I find like the sweet spot for those kind of videos. And then of course I'm going to treat myself to a 24 video, a sunset video, and like upcoming like Dear San Francisco video that is like taking me a very long time to do, but it's worth it. And I know for a fact it's only going to get like 1,500 views at max or something like that, because nobody's looking for Dear San Francisco video. Like Dear Basketball by Kobe Bryant is like, of course, like that's Kobe. Like people are gonna like look for that, but Dear San Francisco, nobody's gonna look for that. But that satisfies my soul, and I already have like other pieces that like teach other people, but also satisfy my soul at the same time. So, yeah, finding that balance is always hard.
But do you feel like,
and if like, oh yeah, go ahead. No, you should go.
Okay, but then on that note, because we were talking about the creative gap, do you feel like the creative gap differs depending on the type of video you're making? Like, is it easier to have the how-to videos or the instructional ones and like bring that to fruition versus the say 24 or college dropout ones? Like, or would you say like across the spectrum, like you face the same creative block challenge?
Oh yeah, that's a good question too, because those how-to videos are a lot easier to make. I think the challenge of the how-to videos is to make it efficient, because I don't want to waste anybody's time. I know there are a lot of YouTube vloggers out there who say, here are 5 tips to grow your video business. They say tip number 1, and then they vlog for 30 minutes. And then they're like, oh, tip number 2. I'm like, what? Why did you waste my time for 30 minutes? Like, none of that vlog content was like relatable to like what you were trying to teach me. And like, you're just trying to make ads off of me. Yes. So that's the challenge that I have for the how-to videos. Like, how can I make this efficient but not too fast? Because if it's too fast, then I think like you're just like overloaded with like information, and you like at the end of the day like didn't get anything at all, because they're just like all like thrown at you like a food fight. And yeah, like of course, like we've already talked about, for the more concept pieces, thought pieces, like those are very hard to like capture the emotion slash soul like that you and I like both have like going into anything.
What was like the hardest like concept video you had to like fight with to bring to fruition?
Yeah, so the sunset video is my favorite video I've ever made to date. But that one was actually not that hard to make. The 24 video was really hard to make. I actually had no idea what the video was even going to be about until I turned 24, because I filmed all those clips like I think a month before my birthday.
Oh, really?
And I was just like, I think I was just like, oh, like I'll just like film like me and my friends like hanging out and all sort of stuff, and then like I'll film like this hangout, and then I'll film like this part, and then I looked at all the clips like in my hard drive. I'm like, I have no idea like what this is supposed to be about. Like, how am I gonna tie this together?
Yeah. And
I'm pretty sure I watched one of your videos, one of your Yosemite, the only Yosemite video I think, or maybe did you make more? Did you only make one Yosemite video?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so I watched that Yosemite video, and like how it was unified by you talking. So like that like shoelace that like brought the shoe together, like I was like, oh, maybe I can like say something, but I didn't even know what to say yet until I turned 24 and actually reflected when I was eating like Hawaiian food for lunch. I was like, shoot, I'm kind of in the middle of like a sweet part of my life right now that I've always wanted. Because in college I was stressing out. I'm like, oh my God, like computer science is not gonna work out, and I'm like, I just want to like be free and like love what I do. But in that like moment when I was eating like Hawaiian food and I turned 24, I was like, wait, this is it. Like, this is what I wanted. And then like all the words started like flooding into my mind. I'm like, okay, I gotta hold that. I gotta hold it. And then when I got to the editing bay, like then all the clips like made sense.
Yeah.
So that video was actually really hard to make because I had no idea what it was supposed to be.
Wait, no,
until
I
the
totally
end.
relate, because now that you say that, you're reminding me of travel videos that I create. I try not to put out a travel video for the sake of just documenting the travels. Like
Yeah.
this is not a I haven't made it in a while, which is why this is now only coming to my head. I always at the end of the day try to have a point or a reflection to bring across.
Right.
And so for that Yosemite video, that I actually live in Seattle, and so I was doing a one last hoorah at Yosemite because it's like Chris has said, Disneyland for like photographers and videographers. Just like these, it's amazing. If you haven't been, I'm sorry for you, but like the place is so beautiful, and I wanted to say one final goodbye, and it felt only fitting to being like for my last like week in California to be at Yosemite. And so one, it was a capturing of Yosemite, but also it was like a farewell letter to Yosemite, or not to Yosemite, to California before I headed off to Seattle, where I reside now. Or another one was a trip down to LA, and I this was after I moved up to Seattle. I took a trip down to LA. One, I was wanting to document that, but also I wanted to. In my time in LA, I had made a lot of friends down there, and I wanted to like convey my appreciation for these friends into this trip back to them. And so that's where a lot of like my monologue like videos come to life, is through like the thoughts I'm processing, like putting that into a waveform and like slapping that onto the timeline. Like that's how I think my videos come to life. Maybe that's why I like your 24 and your sunset videos so much, is because they remind me of what I would create, in the sense of like,
Yeah.
you have your audio drives forward the point that you're trying to like share. And so that maybe that's just me sharing my biasness for those videos. I don't know what to make out of that point.
Yeah, this is pandering now.
Yeah. But yeah, I hope this isn't pandering. Like,
Yeah, this shouldn't be pandering.
I'm like, this is us like shooting the breeze that we normally do. I had another thought, and I lost it. Cut this out.
It's okay. We could cut this.
What if we don't cut it and we just leave it in there?
Oh yeah. I'll leave this part in.
My question for you is, are there videos that you didn't want to create but you still created? Because I think one of the original thoughts I had going into this talk about creativity, for me, I've been realizing there's, like you said, there's spectrums to it, and I think I delved a lot on the side of making stuff for other people and not necessarily enough for just what I want to see. And so I've been doing that more so lately within the past couple years. But for you, have you ever found yourself on the other side of the spectrum and not wanting to be there? Like,
Oh, repeat that question.
have you ever found yourself like creating a video, like you're being creative to some sense, but not in a way that you want it to be? Like you're creating a how-to that you weren't ever really passionate about, or you're creating a like concept video that is not panning out the way that you're envisioning it. Like, has there ever been moments like that for you?
Yeah. I don't know why I just brain farted, but I have two videos that come to mind. One that actually did really badly, and one that actually did really good. So this talks. Hold on, let me repeat that. This is just like commentary on the YouTube algorithm, because like you have no control over like what gets picked up and what doesn't. So two videos that I really did not want to make is the 3 simple tricks for portraits, my most viral video.
You didn't want to make that?
Because yeah, so I knew that my first self-portrait video was starting to like really peak in views, and so did the second one. And then I just made the iPhone one, which is like self-portraits 3, and that was getting picked up too. But I was like, I don't want to keep feeding into this, because like I'm not even all about self-portraits. Like that's not what I do regularly anyways. Like I wanted to make that originally so that photographers who like lost all their gigs during quarantine can like practice on posing and composition on themselves, because we have like no other option. So that was my original intent, but like I think it just got picked up because a lot of people like doing self-portraits for social media. And then like when I was thinking about it, I'm like, oh shoot, these videos are doing really well. Should I make another follow-up like episode 4? I'm like, oh, these really don't like, I really don't want to make this. And this kind of like speaks on kind of like the music that you and I listen to, like the artists that we listen to, like they don't always want to make the same thing over and over again. And they want to make a creative risk and like make an album with a different sound. Sometimes it does really well, like Tyler the Creator, or sometimes it does really badly, like I don't know, like whoever we listen to.
I know who you're gonna say, but you're not saying it.
4 episodes. Oh, and then Self-Portraits episode 4, I didn't even want to talk. Like that's how much I didn't even want to do it.
Oh, that's
so
why
it was
you
like
did
2
that.
minutes long. I didn't talk, and it ended up being my most viral video. Like I think it's like at 560,000 views now, which is insane. And then I was like, oh, I didn't even want to make that. I just made that for like other people. So that was like the wide side of the spectrum. And then the second video that I really didn't want to make, and it was for the sake of like doing once a week. This was when I was hella busy. And it was the how to make your photos glow. And I talked about the Pro Mist filter. And I'm like, oh my god, this video is so dumb. And then like I made it, and I felt like my soul like left my, like I sold my soul to the algorithm. And like when I sold it, I got like a penny back kind of thing, because like it did horribly. It was so bad. And I was like, oh, this is like the part of like YouTube that a lot of people talk about, where like you have no idea, you're just busy in general, and you want to put out something for the sake of like consistency. And oh, it sucked. It felt like I wasn't even burned out at that point, but it felt like burnout when I like made that video and uploaded it. I'm like, I hate this video.
Oh,
and I guess so did everybody else, because it was useless.
Do you feel like YouTube has helped or deterred your creativity? Like if your creativity had a gauge and you looked at the point in time where YouTube came into the picture, did the gauge, like how did the gauge change, if it did, in your opinion?
That's a really good question. I felt like YouTube helped me a lot. Because I made a video about rotting creativity, where like you have like all these ideas in your head, these sounds, these voiceovers, these like pictures in your head, and when you don't express it, it just kind of sits in your head and kind of starts to rot. And like it really does like put a mental like toll on you, and your mood starts to reflect it, where like you get more cranky, or at least I did. I got more cranky and all this other stuff, and I became more impatient and unsatisfied with life in general. But YouTube helped me a lot because I had so many ideas in my head, and I was like in college and I didn't have time to do that. I worked a corporate job for a little bit. You remember that? I worked at Toyota for a little bit, and then when we went on that Yosemite trip, I'm like, I think I want to quit. And that was like my second month in the job, and everyone was like, oh, what? Like, you want to quit already? So YouTube was finally like my outlet for that creative freedom.
Yeah.
It was finally like my outlet, like translate all that stuff that was like in my head, because it does nobody any good, especially for the creator, like him or herself, like when those ideas just sit. And like sometimes it is out of your control, because you work a full-time job. You don't have that much time and that much energy to like put into like whatever is going on in your head, or whatever is like in your notebook. And like for other people, like this same thing, like they're in school, or they don't have the equipment that they want, or they don't have the time, or the timing is just like not right. So
Yeah.
YouTube has definitely like jacked up like my creativity like 100%. And I do have to have this realistic expectation or realistic outlook that I can't perpetually like grow. Like I can't always like top my last video, and that's like a pressure that I put on myself. But it's just for the sake of like creating and having fun and helping people along the way.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, we're gonna wrap up this podcast now. Thank you, Richie, for being on this. But it was really good to talk about like the difficulty of translating our creativity to like pen and paper or like to a video. Comment down below if you like struggle with this too, because I feel like this is a very prevalent difficulty, but one that always makes us better creators at the end of the day. And do you have experience like having client work and you being put into a box? Like, does that make you even more creative? Does it frustrate you? Comment down below. Make sure you like this video, sub, and again, Richie, thanks for being on this podcast, dude. Yeah, all right. See you guys in the next video. Peace. And we out.